Hi friends, welcome to Beautifully Bookish Bethany. In today's video, my patrons and channel members are picking my TBR as part of Patron and Channel Member Appreciation Week. Because I love my patrons and my channel members, they make it possible for me to do what I do, and I wanted to show them some love. So we're doing a whole appreciation week, and I'm doing lots of fun things for them. But among them is all of my reading for the whole week will be based on spinning a wheel filled with suggestions of books that they want me to read from my TBR. So they are books that I already have in some form. So we are at least reading down my TBR, but this really could go a lot of ways. It is Saturday night and it starts tomorrow on Sunday. I'm going to be really busy tomorrow, so I wanted to go ahead and figure out what my first couple of books were going to be. So earlier today I did a spin. Here's that footage. All right, so we are going to go ahead and spin this wheel for my first read picked by my patrons. Ah! Oh man. Ooh, okay. We're starting with a big one. A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. Oh my god. All right, starting strong. That one I am going to do via audiobook, so let's spin again to look for a physical or ebook to read. The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. All right, so that will be my first physical book. I like that it's a different genre. So as you can see, the first book that came up was this one, A Day of Fallen Night, like 850, 900 page book. So I will be listening to this. That'll be my audiobook to start. I think it's hilarious that the longest one is, of course, the first one that popped up, but that's cool. We're going to get it off the TBR. And then I will also be reading The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. I will check back in once I've made some progress. Also, since we're vlogging, I have some other fun things happening this week, so I'll take you along with me. Tomorrow is the Super Bowl, and in the evening, I was invited to a Super Bowl party hosted by YouTube, so we'll go hang out there too.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for being here. Welcome to YouTube's Creator Collective Super Bowl.
Editing by ourselves often, and one of the best decisions I made was DMing both of these guys and figuring out a way we could connect. I find these events really important for exactly that.
Good morning, it is Monday, and I wanted to do a little bit of an update on how the reading is going. I have started both of my first two books. Last night, I went to a YouTube Super Bowl party, which was super fun, but I was very tired this morning, but I'm drinking my coffee. I just finished breakfast, so yay. I am listening to the audiobook of this thing, but let me see if I can figure out like how far in I am if I were to be reading it physically. So yeah, so this is where I'm at. So it's about a little over 200 pages read. So, you know, making some progress, but it's like almost 850 pages long. So we're making progress. But what do I think of it so far? Mixed feelings. Parts of it are interesting. I'm not yet convinced that we needed this tome of a book as a prequel. It's following several different perspectives. Some of them are more interesting than others. You know a lot more about what's going on if you've read The Priory of the Orange Tree before reading this, even though this takes place many, many years beforehand. And this is the story of dragons coming back into the world, which is like an important setup piece for what happens in Priory of the Orange Tree. It's really long though. It is slow. Some of the perspectives are a bit dry, but then parts of it are really interesting. I don't know, mixed feelings. I don't think I'm gonna like it as much as I did Priory of the Orange Tree, but I'm glad that I'm reading it, so we're gonna keep going. That one's gonna gonna take a minute. If I'm being honest, I kind of wish I could break this up with something a little bit later on audio. I started reading The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. I'm about 50 pages into it so far, and I'm really enjoying it. It's a great setup. I'm excited to see where it goes. I think it's gonna be really fun. So this is a contemporary romance, and it follows these characters who did a supposedly short-term marriage of convenience while they were in college. So one of them was in working on her bachelor's degree, one of them was in a PhD program, and they got married, so sort of lived as roommates so they could live in family housing. But now, 3 years later, the guy who, what she didn't know is the heir to this like huge grocery store chain fortune, has been lying to his family and saying that he's married, and also thought that she was going to go on to become a doctor, which she switched her major to fine art. She's living on next to nothing, just got fired from a job at a convenience store. She thought they were divorced because she didn't read their contracts. And he's like, no, actually, we're still married technically, and you get money when our divorce is finalized. But in order to get my inheritance, I needed us to be married for like 5 years. And he thought she knew all this. I don't know. It was like a big miscommunication thing. And she's just like a hot mess, but in a delightful way, and has pink hair and is an artist. It's fun. But he's like, I need you to come and pretend to be my loving wife at my sister's wedding on a private island in Indonesia, and pretend that you've been living as a billionaire's wife and are a doctor or are in medical school. So she's doing that. It's fun because it's got sort of glow up vibes. It's got marriage of convenience and faking a relationship. I think it's going to be really fun. It is a little absurd, admittedly, but in a fun way. So far I am enjoying that. And this is not a super long book. It's like 330 pages. So I read that while I took my kid to play basketball the other day. So that's where we're at so far. I'm gonna drink my coffee, listen to some more of the audiobook, and we'll see what else we can get through today. I don't want to be stuck on Day of Fallen Night all week, so I'm gonna try to get through it in a timely manner so I can get to some of the other books that y'all want me to read. But so far, it's going okay. I will do another update later. It is Monday night. I'm about to hop on reading sprints for patrons with a bunch of special guests, which I'm very excited for. We've got Izzy from Happy for Now, Ashley from what is the new channel, Realm of Kidlit and Comics, I think is the new one, formerly Bookish Realm, Jess Owens, and Bree from Lock Booktition if she can make it home in time. So it's gonna be a fun night. I am very excited for it. I have made it a little further. I think I got through the first 43 chapters of A Day of Fallen Night, and I am liking it, but it is slow. It's a lot to have it be the only audiobook I'm listening to. I feel like usually when I'm listening to something like this, I break it up with something a little later. So I don't know, I guess I could spin the wheel again and see if I can find something else I have on audio that I could break it up with. But also I'm like, I want to actually finish it this week. So we'll see how it goes. But for reading sprints tonight, I am going to be reading The Paradise Problem. So hopefully I'll make a lot of good progress on that.
They don't really press us on much.
Good morning. Last night's sprints did not involve any reading. It was a really fun group, but we just talked for like 3 hours on live. But I have made progress on A Day of Fallen Night. I am about halfway through this at this point, and I have such mixed feelings about it because there are parts of it that I'm really interested in and really invested in. There are characters I like, but it's so slow and long. I feel like this book really could have been shorter. It's too long. Like, it could have used some serious edits, but like there's parts of it that I'm really into, so I'm not hating it. I'm just like, oh man, for a week when I was hoping to get a lot of reading done, it's definitely slowing me down. But you know, I'm gonna keep going. There's one character I like who is like a middle-aged lesbian and a warrior assassin sort of the secret order of women, and I like her. We've also got a couple of young queens who are coming into their rule, and it's interesting. It's a diverse cast of characters. There's a lot of politics. There's a lot of like how things came to be. But again, it just feels like, oh, this really could have been trimmed down. So mixed feelings. I don't see this being anything lower than a 3, but I don't see it being a 5. So we'll see how it ends up. Now I am off to the gym. I've got a training session this morning. I'm premiering a video later, but I am hoping to get a good bit of reading done. Maybe we can finish this book. I would like to get it out of the way today. I think I have about 6 hours left on listening at my current speed, so we'll see. Good morning. This is the outfit. I'm going to have tea with Victoria Schwab. I'm super excited. I'm going to take you along with me. This is promo for her next book. Also, I am getting close to the end of A Day of Fallen Night. It's Wednesday. I'm gonna finish it this morning. So we're finally almost there. The end is really good. I don't know, where am I gonna be? Probably 3.5. It's probably gonna be a 3.5 star read, but I'll check in. Let's go have tea with Victoria Schwab.
Such a cute place.
To one of my favorite places in all of New York City. I'll get to chat with all of you more at our tables. This book was born in the wake of Addie LaRue. Addie LaRue is my 20th novel. It was a bit of an outlier for me creatively, and it left an open grave in its wake. One that for a really long time I thought would never be filled. The kind of teenage years I wish I'd had and didn't, the kind of hunger I felt and felt I shouldn't have, the way that I felt moving through the world as a woman, as a queer woman, especially being told how much space I was entitled or allowed to take up and how much I wasn't. I wanted to write something that felt like it could sit next to Addie LaRue as a kind of spiritual counterpoint while telling a very different story. If Addie LaRue was a story about hope, this is a story about hunger, right? In all of the forms that it takes. And it feels, in retrospect, something that I can say that I didn't realize while I was drafting it, which is that I spent the first 15 years of my career trying to make myself smaller, trying to make myself more palatable to commercial publishing, trying to make myself less femme, less queer, less ambitious, less weird, trying to make myself as palatable as possible. And I got tired. I got so tired. I used a pseudonym so that you wouldn't notice I was a woman, just in case that bothered you. I made my queer stories always more subtext than text because I didn't want it to put off straight readers, right? I wanted to do everything I could to have the success that I felt I needed to tell the stories as strange as they were. And over the course of those 15 years, I realized how much energy I was spending on trying to be small, on trying to blend in. And this book is in many ways my own reckoning with that. This book is hungry and angry and sexy and ambitious. It does not pull its punches and it does not apologize for what it is, and neither do the women in it. My hope is not that you fall in love with all 3 women in the center of this story, but my hope is that they all get underneath your skin in different ways. Hopefully you like at least one of them. Maybe you'll love all 3, but that isn't the intent. The intent is for them to stick with you in whatever way that they do. I hope that whatever you bring to the book, you carry something away. So with that, I am so excited to be here. I'm mildly terrified as well. I should say. Bury our bones in the midnight soil and feel a little early, in the hopes that you love reading it as much as I loved writing it. So thank you so much for coming today.
Yeah, I love it video.
Where it's like a slow burn rather than like being so like.
I finished it! Finally. I've got to say the ending was really good. But it was so slow in parts. I feel like I'm leaning towards a 3.5. Like the ending makes me want to give it a 4, but I feel like 3.5 is more honest. I'll probably round up to 4. So yeah, I didn't love it as much as Priory. I feel like it is slower, less action, and I wasn't as invested in some of the characters, but I did still really like it, and the ending's real good. So I'm glad that I finally read it. This was long though, and this took up a lot of my week, man. That was an intense one. It is late Wednesday afternoon. Had an amazing time at tea with Victoria Schwab. That was phenomenal. The food was so good. Everything was like, amazing. And I'm really excited to read the book. But now I'm going to spin the wheel again to look for another book I can start on audio. All right, let's see if I can get something I have on audio. So I will spin till I find something that I do have that I can listen to on audio, because that's what I need now. So let's see what we get. Oh, Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. I really want to read this. Unfortunately, I only have a physical copy because it's an ARC, and I'm still reading the Christina Lauren book. So we're going to try again. Let's see what we get this time. Come on, something on audio. Let's do this. No, the other post. Okay, this I also has an ARC. Jeez. Okay, maybe I should. No, I'm going to get confused if I uncheck all of the things that I don't have on audio. We're going to try again. We're going to keep going. The Last Cuentista by Donna Barba Higuera. Okay, let me see. I have this physically, but maybe I can get it on audio. Let me see. Let me see if I can find this one. Okay, it looks like I can listen to this one on Everand. So that will be my next audiobook. This is an award-winning middle grade sci-fi book that I've heard will make you cry. So it won the Newbery Award. I have heard nothing but good things about it, but again, I've heard that it's really sad. I've read another book by this author and thought it was really good, so I'm excited to read this, and it's connected to this book. So yeah, I will start this on audio on Everand, and thankfully this one is much shorter, so hopefully I can get through a few more books during the course of the week. Good morning, it is Thursday and it's almost noon. I have finished reading The Last Cuentista, so we're going to talk about it. It's amazing, so we're going to talk about that. Today is Galentine's Day, the day before Valentine's Day, and I have 2 events tonight. So there's going to be so much fun stuff. I'm going to take y'all along with me. I've got back-to-back events. First, Avon, which is a romance imprint at HarperCollins, is doing an influencer event that I was invited to, so I'm really excited about that. And then later tonight at Book Club Bar, they're doing a special panel event talking about reproductive rights in romance with Adriana Herrera, who is one of my favorite authors, Joanna Shoup, some other people. I'm really excited for it. Both of those things are happening tonight. I'll take y'all along with me for some of it, but first, let's talk about The Last Cuentista, and then we're going to pick my next audiobook. I've got to say, Day of Fallen Night took over the first few days of this challenge, so I'm really glad to be finally getting some books I can get through a little faster, so I'm not just reading like 2 books for the whole week where patrons pick my week. Is like, dang. I know I'm busy too, so it makes it harder. But y'all, this book is incredible. I can see why it was an award winner. It's middle grade science fiction following a Latin American young girl who's going with her parents and her brother to escape Earth before a comet destroys her. She's leaving behind her grandmother, who was a cuentista or a storyteller, and that's also what she dreams of being, is being a storyteller, but her parents want her to do science because of course they do. So they're going to escape Earth right before it's basically destroyed by this comet, and they're supposed to be put to sleep for hundreds of years before they reach this habitable planet, but things go very wrong. And it is at times a little harrowing for middle grade, but I think still written in a way that makes sense for the age group. Really interesting as a sci-fi story, and I think it's kind of cool to see some of these tropes that I've seen in adult science fiction and in YA science fiction played out for a middle grade audience in a way that has so much heart, beautiful writing, fully realized world and characters, incredible themes, but is written in a way that, 8 to 12-year-olds could pick this up and understand what's going on. I also get really excited when I see science fiction in children's literature because it's not something we get a lot of, and this is so good. The cover is gorgeous. It doesn't necessarily look like it would be a sci-fi novel. I guess you kind of get it because there's like stars in the background, but it is definitely science fiction with a super brave heroine who is resilient in the face of a lot of challenges. It deals with loss and grief. It deals with family and respecting our ancestors and the importance of memory and oral storytelling as a form of memory to help guide our futures. Without giving too much away about the plot, I'll just say that some of the antagonists in the book think that they could make a better world by everybody being the same and sort of flattening the differences between people. And so I think this is doing a really good job of exploring the importance and the value that comes with individuality and comes with different cultures and skin colors and backgrounds and experiences. So beautiful, beautiful book. I loved it. It is easily 5 stars. I feel like maybe even a 6-star read, which for me is a favorite of the year. So I'm really glad that I read this. Her writing is incredible. I will pick up more from this author, and I am so glad that this got me to pick it up. So The Last Cuentista, loved it. Let's go back to the spinner wheel and see if I can get myself another audiobook to start while I do my makeup. And then I'm doing some reading sprints this afternoon with patrons where I'm hoping to make some more progress on The Paradise Problem. Let's see how many spins it takes us to get another book that I can listen to on audio. Spin. There we go. How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. Perfect. I actually do have this on audio, so that will be my next read. Very exciting. I just got off sprints with patrons and channel members, and I made some good progress in The Paradise Problem. I am about halfway through it now, really enjoying it. Funny, and yeah, I'm liking it. His family is hella messy, so enjoying that so far. I also did start listening to How High We Go in the Dark, and I've got to tell you, it is harrowing. Like, very well written, but harrowing. I did not know what it was about. I knew it was sad, but that was about all I knew, that it was kind of like literary sci-fi of some sort. It came out in 2022, and it is about a deadly pandemic where, because of climate change, this really bad virus has come out of under the ice in Siberia, and it affects children first. It's a short story collection with interconnected short stories from the perspective of different characters dealing with it. But it's real rough, y'all. Like, one of the early chapters that I listened to is about this guy who starts working at what is sort of a theme park for children, but for children with this disease who are close to death, where they have a great time with their families, and then at the end they get put on this roller coaster that like unalives them, as I guess a form of euthanasia, but they don't know it's coming. It's a lot, y'all. I'm like, oh my God. The writing is really good. It is a lot about humanity and grief and how do we process that and love. So it's a well-written book, but harrowing, I feel, is a good word for it. So we've got yet another book that is sort of apocalyptic sci-fi about grief. Taking a break from that and reading The Paradise Problem for a couple hours was nice with the patron sprints. I am now going to get ready to head to that Avon event. I will take you all along with me, and I will see you later. It'll be fun. Let me show you my outfit for today. Okay, so this is the outfit. I've got these jeans from Universal Standard and this fun blouse that I got in my Newly subscription. It's from Anthropologie and feels perfect for a Galentine's event. And then I'm wearing the purple coat again, which I think will be fun. So let's go to a couple of fun events for the night. On to event number 2.
question of representation.
Well, my latest book, which came out last week, the heroine is an abortionist. In 1989 in Paris. I mean, generally, my work is pretty feminist, I would say, or I try to make it as feminist as I can possibly make it. It's the last book in the series. It's 3 books. It's set in the 1889 World's Fair, and each of the heroines were in a different kind of field. The first one, she was a rum distiller. The second one, she was an artist and a lesbian. And the third one is she was a physician. And from the beginning of me writing the series, which I started kind of working on in 2020, I knew she would be a doctor, and I knew that she would be doing work that was very much like focused on providing access to healthcare for women of color primarily, but like any women who needed access to the kind of healthcare service that wasn't within the purview of the law at that time. And Joanna, who wrote a book that also has like a lot of focus on the Comstock laws. I know about the Comstock laws, but your book was one of those books that was like, romance, Comstock laws. We should be talking more about this. It's 1889, so at the time that my book is set, the Comstock laws had been around for a long time, but like the obsession with controlling women's bodies was spreading kind of pretty fast. And born in Mexico, Dominican, Mexican, and I just wanted to talk about all the work that was being done by women in Latin America around healthcare access. I wanted to talk about midwives being pushed out of the medical field once the medical profession became formalized and monetized. And that work in the United States being primarily done by indigenous women and Black women, but like around the world being done by like working class women, and they were basically pushed out of the profession. And I just generally wanted to talk about abortion because I don't think we talk about it enough in romance. And once Roe v. Wade was struck down, I started writing the book, and maybe like 2 months later, Roe v. Wade was struck down. So I was like really pissed, and also just wanted to talk about it more. And so I think to me it's important to talk about agency. With all these books that I've written in this series, my goal was to talk about the work that women have done. Romance is the genre that gives you hope and comfort and great sex. So it's a book with a woman who will do anything to help the women that need help and finds a man that sees it, values it, and feeds her grapes and gives her great sex while she's trying to save women's lives. So that's my ministry.
And that is a great book. I can attest. That's a fabulous book. So I write books set in 19th century New York, specifically the Gilded Age, which is the period after the Civil War, leading up to the Progressive Era, sort of at the turn of the century. I have tried over the years to focus on different parts that I would like to sort of shine a light on. I wrote a book about the Chinese Exclusionary Act. I've written a lot of class conflicts. I've written about mediums. I've written, like, a lot of my heroes are tycoons. Don't judge. We listen and we judge. We don't judge. But the last book that I released, which is called The Duke Gets Even, Roe was still in place when I wrote it. And I feel like had it not been, it would have been a different book. But I didn't know we were going to be where we are. And so Nellie, the heroine, sort of falls into this role where she herself has had an abortion. It's not on the page, but it is discussed. And she becomes sort of this middleman of providing contraceptives to women who either wouldn't know how to get them or couldn't afford them, or just so she sort of plays middleman, and she holds these clinics where she tells them how to use them. She tells them, she sells them. She provides them for all kinds of women in New York. And there are some repercussions from that, because I thought there were husbands who did not want their wives using those, and still today don't want their wives using that. So there's consequences to that. And she also lives in fear of the Comstock laws, so I always knew, writing in the Gilded Age, that I wanted to write about the Comstock laws because they were so pervasive in that era and really dictated a lot of what was viewed as obscene, what could be discussed. It would, as we get into the 1910s, it affected medical manuals, it affected marriage manuals, it affected anything really that talked about a woman's body, and that was considered obscene. So Anthony Comstock, if you don't know, was a horrible person. He hated women. He was an obsessive masturbator. So there you go.
Chronic masturbator.
Chronic masturbator. So now you all know. So to me, like that, it was the last book of the series, and I knew that Nellie was the heroine that really could tackle the Comstock laws, and that the story made sense. So I always knew I wanted to do it. It was just a matter of finding the puzzle pieces. But I do, like Adriana, I try to write really feminist, have their own businesses and their own agency and their own independence, and are really fighting to make change in a world that
Needs change making because maybe
yeah, and here we are again. So there you go.
Hello, happy Valentine's Day. I went out for breakfast with my husband this morning, which was fun, and I finished listening to How High We Go in the Dark. Mixed feelings about it. I feel like it started really strong, if harrowing, and then the middle of it got a little less interesting. It was a mix. It was a mixed bag because each one is a different short story with a different character, and some of them were more interesting than others. Some of them were a little bit more dull. It does lean a little more literary in the middle at times. Not always, still sci-fi, but like some of it's more literary, a lot of exploration of grief. It gets to be a lot, at least for me. I think I would have liked it if it was shorter, maybe if it was more like novella length. And then the ending wasn't what I expected. I'm not sure how I feel about the ending. I don't know that it's what I wanted from the book. I don't know. I landed on 3 stars. Like, I liked it. I didn't love it. I expected it to be higher, but thinking about it, I feel like 3 stars, but I can see why it would really work for some people. I don't know. There were parts of it that were very compelling, but it's also a rough read. Like, if you're not ready to read a pandemic book, this is a rough one. If you're having trouble reading, it's like mostly about grief, loss, death. That is, I mean, it's like kind of hopeful, I guess. I don't know, man. It was a little bit of a rough read for me. 3 stars. 3 stars. That's where we are. So I'm going to pick another audiobook and we'll see what I end up with. I'm halfway through the Christina Lauren books. I think I can probably finish that before the end of tomorrow, because tomorrow is the end of this vlog, the end of the week of reading what my patrons picked for me. And then I'm hoping I can do like one more audiobook before the end. So we'll see what we can do. And then I need to film my mid-month wrap up. But this has been good. I've knocked quite a few things off my TBR. I'll take it, including that like hella long book. Let's go pick my next audiobook. And for the record, I'm really hoping it's something fun. Like, we've had a lot of heavy stuff. Like, I could use something light. I'm kind of hoping for the John Scalzi. Let's see what happens. Death of the Necromancer by Martha Wells. Okay, I'll take it. Let's do it. Hey y'all, it is Saturday evening, so we are close to wrapping this video up. I wanted to do an update. This is not my final update because I am planning on doing some more reading tonight before our time is officially over. But I started reading Death of a Necromancer by Martha Wells, and I think I'm probably gonna DNF it. You know what this has made me come to realize? I've read enough Martha Wells now. She is hit or miss for me. When I love her work, I love her work. And when I don't, it just doesn't really work for me. So Death of a Necromancer, I've been trying to put my finger, because it's not a bad book. Like, it's a fine book. Excuse my children in the background. They're very loud. I've been trying to put my finger on what exactly it is that isn't working about this book for me, and I think I've kind of figured it out. I'm pretty far into it. I would say almost halfway. It's very action forward. It's in a alternate fantasy world, but it reads like Victorian England. And there's not a lot of world building really happening. I don't know why you don't just make it a fantasy version of Victorian England. I don't know. I mean, people have reasons for it. But at the start of the book, I felt a little bit like, okay, there's these people and things are happening, but I have no sense of the world, like no sense of where we are, what's going on, the world building. And I wanted more, which is funny because I feel like there are other books I've read from her where I loved it, where it was like strong character work and interesting world building. And this one, I feel like you kind of get a little bit of the magic world building as you go, but a lot of it is following like thieves in a city, and there's a necromancer on the loose, it seems, and magic exists. I don't feel like I know much about any of the characters except that one of the main characters is a nobleman, but he's also a thief. I just feel very disconnected from it. That said, I think if you like more of an action-forward book, right, there's a lot of things happening that on the surface are interesting. I just am not getting what I need to feel like I'm connected to the books. So for those reasons, I think I'm going to DNF it, just because I think this is not for me. And while I loved the book that I read, the Roxura series, I can't remember what the Cloud, I can't think of it. I'll put the book here. I read this book and I loved it, and I want to keep going with the series. Great character work, interesting world building. I love the Murderbot Diaries. This was just very middle of the road for me, and I feel like if I finish it, I'm going to give it a 3 and not be thinking about it. So I think I'm just going to DNF and sort of call it good. The Witch King, I kept wanting to love, and it ended up being on my least favorite of the year, most disappointing of the year, because it just didn't work for me. So I think I'm learning that some things work for me with Martha Wells and other things don't. But I could see people loving this book because, again, it's not a bad book. It's just not what I want. So anyway, all of that to say, I'm going to DNF it. Should I roll again for another audiobook to start, even though we're near the end? I still have like 150 pages left to go in the Christina Lauren book, which I do plan to finish that tonight. But what the hell, we could start another one. So 1 DNF, which is a bummer, but you know what? I'm glad that I finally got pushed to try it, so that I know that this series from her just isn't for me, which is fine. Let's roll for another one. Probably our final time spinning. Well, it is our final time spinning. Let's see what we got. We need an audiobook. Sword Heart by T. Kingfisher. I think this is one I have on audio. Okay. And I like T. Kingfisher. I've been meaning to read this. This is very exciting. Okay, yeah, let's do it. Hello, it is Sunday and time to wrap this video up as we have come to the end of Patron and channel member appreciation week. I did finish reading The Paradise Problem last night, and I really liked it. I think it's interesting. It's got lots of drama and family messiness. It's a little bit sexy, and it's really fun. I like how they worked out stuff at the end of it. I think it was a really satisfying conclusion, and I feel like this would be probably a 4.5 star read for me. So definitely successful, one that I quite enjoyed, and I'm happy I picked it up. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but again, this was really fun, and this is the one physical book that I read this week. It was slow and audio heavy, but I did have a lot of events going on. I started reading Sword Heart by T. Kingfisher, which I realized actually just came out recently. It was originally indie published, and I've had the audiobook for a while, but Tor just published it in this gorgeous hardcover, so I'll show you the new cover here. I did not have time to finish it, surprise, surprise, but I'm almost halfway into it, and I'm really enjoying it. It is a fantasy novel with a romantic plot arc following a middle-aged widow who is saved from being forced into marriage with one of her dead husband's relatives because they want to get their hands on her money, by a magic sword that is a man, where because she owns it, if she draws the sword, this swordsman appeared who magically became merged with the sword many, many years ago, and he kind of helps her escape, and they begin to fall in love along the way. And it's really delightful. It's pretty lighthearted and fun, and they're having adventures, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And we've got a middle-aged heroine falling in love. What is not to like? So I suspect I'm gonna end up very much enjoying that. So far, it's been really great, and I'm happy with how this week went, even if it wasn't quite what I expected. As a quick review, I completed 3 books that had been on my physical TBR, another book that had been on my audio TBR. I DNF'd The Death of the Necromancer, which I had this bind up of the 2 books in that series on my physical TBR for a long time. So that is also coming off of my shelf. And then I started another book on my audio TBR, which is Sword Heart by T. Kingfisher. So I'm pretty happy with that. All in all, I'm getting 6 books off my TBR in the week. And the only reason I think it wasn't more is because the Day of Fallen Night took up so much of my time. But overall, this was an interesting way to choose what I read. I hope you enjoyed coming along with me to all of the events. Talk to me in the comments down below, and I'll give you 2 ways to interact with this if you want. If you got this far in the video, leave me a book emoji down below, or for your question of the day, let me know, who would you let pick a book for you to read? Have you done something like this before with a friend or family member? Have you let other people pick your TBR for you? Would you do it? Have you done it? How did it go? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, it always helps if you give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.